Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to
Hello,
DevKami number
Hello,
163. So I'm swimming,
I am Tristan.
I'm
doing
Chilean.
ASMR, also doing ASMR. So meanwhile, what's happened to you guys? I know Chilean
Just
got
got
Nothing
jab.
much.
I got a jab and I'm
You are
enjoying the high.
boosted. Yes,
Mm,
you are boosted.
Enjoying the
So
I
yeah.
high.
I've set up a new, like I moved the streaming setup into my room, so hopefully it's not
Okay.
well, it's not as tiring because I don't have to stand all the whole hour, and also it
Right.
should be like less noise from outside. I hope because
Yep.
Right.
originally it was in the living room, and I have to put like the green screen, like a huge curtain, so just so that you
Mm-hmm.
don't see the rest of the house. But now at least this one is you just see my closet behind and my whiteboard. So
Okay. Cool.
hopefully this is
So
nicer.
I'm going to have my jab. I'm going to have my jab next week, Thursday. So I do not know whether I will survive th- Thursday to actually do DevKami. Let's see. No
Let's see.
guarantee.
Just keep us in the loop.
Yeah.
Mm.
So events. So the next event, we already have first event, is we actually have Tech Up, which is actually this year, January, they have it every month. So this is for the next, this, this for this weekend. Then Rustling introduction session, next Thursday. So this is the Rust community try to teach Rust. And also this is also done by one of our former guests, Lolo Caleb. So yeah, so and Chun Xiang is one of our guests on the day as well.
Yeah. Or some of us we call him Jeffrey.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
In case
correct.
you don't know.
Okay, so
Yep.
is this an automated retrieval, or are you still fixing
Yes,
that?
this is actually automated, but it's not as great because, for example, GPS rollover is bad. I'm fixing that. I got Tuesday next week. So, first one on our list. Konami launched NFT for Memorial of Castlevania. I don't agree. There is a lot of reason why I don't agree with NFT.
Yeah, Sega want to
But a lot of
launch
people do.
its NFT stuff, but it got pulled back.
Yes.
Mm.
And also recently Firefox have this, but the original founders also do not agree with it. For the same reason that we think as well lah. Some of us think as well lah. I can't agree with it because to do this you need gas. It tend to be on Ethereum. Ethereum is not staked yet. It's actually mined, and those things take a lot of resource. So
And
it's not something that we
NFT also is it's it's good that you empower creators, but it also sort of
correct.
uh open the floodgate for people that just want to
Yes.
just I
So
mean I
flip
mean
the
benefit from
value.
the chaos.
Correct.
Say
So unfortunately, what NFT does is actually a proof of ownership. The same way in the art world, it's not the art that own, it's actually a signed document from the artist that say that
yeah.
this art now belongs to this uh, to this person, organization, etc. So, which is why when there is an art caught sticking a banana to the wall, yes, it's easily made. Uh, I have my opinion on that, but let's not go there. But once people took it down, the museum have the right to make it back because those include instructions and
No,
whatnot.
it's not
NFT,
really. It's also not really. You don't actually put it this way. It's like you buy a signature from the author
yeah, correct.
without the artwork.
S-
It's I would say it's something like that.
yes. So yeah, NFT is mostly that. Also, there's a lot of fraud because people just own NFT, and and also people look at this a bit wrongly as well because the value are perceived. So people are flipping value for reasons. So yeah, let's move on. We're going to go through our anti-blockchain thing. So first one, this is yet another. This is that alternative to Electron. So the idea here is this is written in Rust, I believe. This written in, was it Rust? Let me look at it. Yeah, it's Rust for backend instead of C++, instead of Node versus Rust and all that. So the license is commercial friendly, and so you can relicense it. So it's more open, some may say. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to anything that is an alternative to Electron. So we need more of this around. So shall we move on, or you have opinion? We move
Good.
on. So this one is interesting because Honda recently had a time issue. So it's actually here. Do we have that? Honda. So Honda and car manufactured in 2004 contain navigation system that set the year wrongly, and the reason is actually it's a very different Y2K-ish problem. The exchange one is because it's a 32-bit number overflow. This one is because of GPS rollover, and GPS runs on a very accurate clock because they have to actually measure the distance. So GPS works by you calculating triangle and calculating triangle by how long signal the radio signal bounce to each other, and to actually measure something so fast with the speed of light, you need a very accurate clock. As a result, people use GPS as a time source. Okay, it's a time source, and what happened is so every 1024 weeks, which is 19 by 6 years, GPS will broadcast a date in 10 digits, which is 1013, and this will cause the integer to overflow, changing to 0 again. So if software is not encoded rollover, it will produce the wrong date. So in this case, the Honda car actually hit with this problem. New York actually 2019 have it as well. So yeah, so it's a software problem. It can be fixed, but and yeah, it's just one of those interesting things that happen. So when many thought that Y2K is gone, it's not gone. It's still happening. In this case, in a very different way. So what do you think about this? Do you worry about this, or
Yeah,
you
it's
hope that?
it's already something that we know.
Yeah, correct. So
It's just that maybe the firmware, the people who are working on the firmware did not,
correct.
because it's just easier not to just consider these things, right? And just
Correct.
write it and then expect that in a few years, let's just push an update. And then the
Yep.
update never came until people forgot about it, and then now you have a problem. And so that's just one of the things that, like, you do need to write code, extra code, to handle um, these particular cases. Because if for example the project manager for whoever approved this timekeeping
Mm-hmm.
unit would have said, okay, everything's working. Maybe they did know that there's going to be a problem this year for the
Mm-hmm.
GPS rollover, but it's
Yep.
2022, and what is it now? 1996, and
Yes.
we don't have. I'm probably
I think
retired by
it's
the
that
time it finished.
anything that has a external factor like this is that yes, we can prepare as much as we can. Just that we need to, when it happens, we also need to know how to mitigate it.
Correct.
I think it's a big hubris that some people think that they can cover everything.
No, not really. The funny thing about this Wikipedia entry, this happens on Earth for GPS user. Haha. I mean, it's true, but snarky. Next one, bad translation, but just a series of trends from game developers, owners, and etc. about the future. So a lot
Yeah,
of it
just
is about
their prediction, and whether it's realized.
correct. So a lot of think that this year will be about subscription, which I agree actually. A lot of VR. Some have is a bit bullish about metaverse. Some a bit bullish about NFT. So yeah, some actually think about AR. I'm looking forward to AR. It might be interesting or distracting. I do not know which is which. Uh, so yeah. So interesting trend that you what you think, but it's not everything here is about gaming. It just roughly about games lah. Let's move on. Next thing. Yeah, this one is horrible. So the owner of Faker, the Faker JS library and Colors actually release uh, new code that actually breaks a lot of project.
Mm.
So currently, to fix this, you have to roll back to older version. Uh, the
It's a
developer
similar argument
Maras,
of where like some of the common core argument, like where they were not getting paid for
correct,
their stuff being used. But I would say it's just that uh my opinion that is pretty irresponsible from the author, because once you decided it's open source, you don't
yep,
own it anymore. You're just one of the maintainer. I mean that's our opinion. That
correct. So
when somebody take it out and use it, unless of course you can decide to relicense it. It's another matter.
correct.
Well,
So it have done before. It been done before. So for example, the recent S the recent PGP, they form a company to do support for BGP product.
Yep.
It's hard work. It's hard work, but they decide to go that part instead of crippling GPG, right? So
well, so talking about responsibility, the people who are doing the deployment should also feel a bit of the responsibility, because
Mm.
if you're if you are depending on third party sources and your
always
build breaks and
refine.
you don't know what to do, and you just like
Mm,
blame people because your build well, that's the exact reason why vendoring exists, or why you have to
correct.
Yep.
think about like what are your dependencies and how do you
Or so,
do a
or that's why
plan
we have a
of
support
stuff.
cycle for a certain version. It's
Yeah,
not
Correct.
always latest.
yeah.
Yes.
Like because you're basically
So
so
test or
if your build
release.
process depends on a third, like you always build and download from a third party website, you're just what wasting bandwidth over and over every time you deploy, because it's going to be the same thing. You're just like eating up the bandwidth there. Why are you not
Yep.
either like hosting it in a proxy or like a cache,
Yep.
or just um don't download the thing, just vendor it
I
and
think
you
don't
know
abuse the
you're
goodwill of other people.
Correct.
Be fair.
So yeah.
yeah.
So put it this way. This protest also doesn't. Well, first people. The person, the author, actually protest against are ignoring this mostly. They just roll back. The
Yep.
impact is not as big as he wanted. I mean, to
I would say
I'm
there are
sorry lah.
options. That's why we have free
Yes,
software and related licenses these days.
correct.
Some people might disobey it, but it's just that because if you use those licenses, we can at least rely on some of the foundation to help us enforce it,
Correct.
like
So,
GPL.
but
There's
also
still a lot
remember
of
this.
not compliance, there's gonna be social pressure for the company, like some of the Android phones maker like that.
Correct. So, which is why there is organization like they, which is why you need organization. So there is the Software Freedom Conservancy that
Mm.
actually help defend against GPL licenses. You have, I think this is the main one. Then the GNU, the GNU organization.
No,
The
Yeah,
new
the
no,
GNU
is it?
GNU.
organization also helps. And the free software foundation. Linux Foundation not so much, believe it or not, but they do have the open innovation network, right? So uh,
Also,
all this,
even if it was the perpetrator went unpunished, is that at least they lost the social creds, like the street creds,
correct.
Mm.
yeah,
So
which is really
yeah,
important in the circle.
correct. So yeah, something to think about. But if you release software, it's a gift. When I release software, in a license, it's a gift to you guys.
Yeah, I think
So
it's something that I've been before this happened. Also, it's not the first time it happened. Also, like something that
yeah,
we talk about as well is that the realization of when you publish it. I mean, the spirits of free and open source are very much different.
correct.
Like,
It's a gift
yeah,
economy in a way. So
yeah.
yeah,
Find ways.
let's
There are
move on.
always ways. I think there are always better
Correct,
ways.
correct. Printer cartridge. So what happened is with chip short. So every of your printer ink actually have a chip that to actually control it, because it's actually it's what we call a mechanical micro electrical mechanical system MEMS, and those are controlled by yet another computer, which is also another chip. So your printer ink actually contain chips, small computers, microcontrollers, and whatnot. Because as a result,
Wait. So
chip
is it the
shortage.
ink itself that have chips? Are you
Hmm.
talking
No,
about nano machines?
it's the
Are
cartridge that
we?
have chip.
What year is it? Did I? Are we
Yeah.
Yeah, the
printing
one
So
that
smoke
they
or
often
printing?
the notorious printer cartridge chip where they often report lower levels than it in
Mm-hmm.
this.
correct. So either way, some manufacturer apparently put DRM in it, and now they're telling, because of the chip shortage and they cannot supply the ink. They'll try to extend the ink usage, and they're also I don't know what this is. This for using third party ink?
I
No,
don't
well,
know.
because the this is the easier way to monitor ink levels, I would say, right?
Yeah,
Because
correct, correct,
otherwise
correct.
you'll have to do like what, a sensor on the ink level and how much ink is left,
It's
but it's a
literally
sponge inside, right?
one way of rendering everything.
Mm.
Correct. So either
Yeah.
way, this is the case where you do not want your DRM to get in the way of your product. So in this case, Canon actually forced to bypass it for many reasons, so that
It's a
uh,
win.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
a
Well,
win
the
in a
the
way.
thing here is that you need a sensor for some reason. Because, so
Correct.
for example, if you've opened a cartridge, like, so some cartridges they're sponges, some are just like ink, and you can either sense directly how much ink is there, or the easier way is that, oh, this much ink does 200 pages, and so I
Yeah.
can measure how much ink actually went through instead of actually measuring how much ink is left. And so that kind of sensor is important, because otherwise, um, the the person won't know whether the ink is available or not until they actually print, and there's nothing that gets printed, right? So it's a convenience for the
Correct.
user. The thing is, printer manufacturers are also doing like double responsibility for this by adding DRM, or like
Yeah.
manipulating things like, oh, you don't have enough ink anymore, please buy this, or I won't print
Yes.
because
Correct.
your printer will be damaged if you print without any ink left, or something like that. And
Yes.
that's what's being bypassed. I think the sensor itself is still, I mean, okay, but
Yep.
the DRM portion needs to be bypassed, because otherwise you can't use the
Correct.
printer at all.
Yes. But this is actually one of many times where DRM gets in the way. So, for example, with more software tends to have that. When you try, then every time you want to archive a game, you need to bypass it. So yeah, it's getting a bit ridiculous, which is why I don't agree with DRM.
Mm-hmm.
And there's things like ebook is notorious for DRM as well, because you technically do not own the book. And what happened when your book is tied to a DRM? Is tied to a DRM when so let's give an example of Google Books. Google Books, they decide to pull away the book, they can.
You know,
Or let's say a publisher want to unpublish a book and make it unreadable, they
Yeah,
can.
I'll
So
put a link on our chat, then you can.
correct.
I'm confession time is that I actually I buy books, then I pirate them.
Mm,
To
yeah,
I mean, I'm not to be specific. It's like
you
I buy
remove the
books, then I
DRM.
torrent the pirated version
Yeah,
for the
Yeah.
non-TF.
yeah. So
So
because Swimming was talking about like the publisher pulling out the book from your electronic device, right? So this article
I
is
don't
about.
trust them to maintain the
Yeah,
because it happens that they remove it without our knowledge.
yeah. So this
Correct.
is a New York Times article. If you
I
open
had my
Swimming.
some of my old software licenses revoked as well from the
Mm-hmm.
site
Yep.
that I purchased.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
Swimming, if you open the link that I posted on the chat, this is Amazon actually doing it. Like, and
Yes.
the irony is that it's. Are you opening it?
I'm copying it right now
Ah,
because it's
okay.
on another window.
Oh, so and the irony is that it's the Orwell books
Yes,
that gets
1984, which I
erased,
wrote it. Yes.
which is yeah, it's quite interesting that that
mm,
is the book that was pulled from Amazon, and so
I
this
think
just
Yep.
supports the thing where you don't actually own your book because now
I think
Amazon
there's
can just
a
remove it
number
from your
of
device.
people that buy books from Amazon then strip off the DM as well.
Mm.
No,
Yeah, yeah,
not
yeah,
really
yes.
not for redistributing, aka pirating, but mainly for
Yeah,
archival,
correct.
for self
Well, not,
for
I would
ourselves.
say majority of Amazon Kindle users don't do it because it's quite difficult to find how to do it, and
Yes,
you need certain expertise. But there are a percentage that will actually do it, and even
correct.
less of a percentage that will put it up on torrent sites. So those are the ones that give the bad publicity
Yeah,
about removing DRM.
but I think
But
it's ethically okay to archive for our own use.
Hmm.
correct. Because you already bought it, you should own it.
Not
So
really
let's
like
move on.
I'm not really on the ownership like it's if it pro I mean just it just I mean just matters of actually in case they delete it
Yep.
or in
So
case
let's
it's
move
like we can do nothing
stores.
about Steam lah, but at least all the files that we can have just
Correct.
not lost just like that.
Hmm.
Correct. So this one is interesting because recently the Malaysia one the is it a ministry the one of help one a health director,
Mm.
was it a former one? It's a health
No,
officials now.
it's
It's
a Ministry of Information right now, technology
okay.
information.
So it's saying that Massachusetts information is stored on a blockchain. Actually, it's not true.
I
It's
think
actually an
because
implementation.
he misunderstood that crypto
Yeah.
when people told him it's a crypto sign, crypto sign,
Yeah.
he thought that it's on the blockchain, but it's
Correct.
actually cryptographically signed.
Correct. So it's actually
Yep.
based on what are the EU
Yep.
implementation.
They credits due is that they did a good work. The QR code is actually a standard.
Yep.
Think JWT, but
Yep.
for your digital cert
Correct.
with ways to verify it. So even
Correct.
the app that you can find online, the Malaysia QR code, vaccine booster QR code
Mm-hmm.
verifier, is that they did a good job. It's not really a cheat. It works. It follows a standard as well.
Correct. So this is a standard. You can see that in the DevKami website, and how it works. It's actually JSON and it's actually encrypted, uh, etc. So yeah, this is the standard that we actually use, not on blockchain.
Yeah. And
But
crypto,
it's
yeah, I think because of the I mean the mismatching of the understanding.
yes. And final one, oh, this take over more than an hour. Never mind. Let's go on. So this is interesting because AMD is making a sucky GPU because of miners. So what they chose to do is they decided to use a 64-bit memory channel, and you do not get like you do not get a memory. You use onboard memory, right? Am I right?
You have enough onboard memory. I think it's just the bandwidth because
Yeah, it's a bandwidth, correct.
you,
So they choose to use a
because
smaller
yeah,
bandwidth.
the because crypto mining that needs like a lot of bandwidth so that you can do multiple things at the same time. It becomes faster that way. It
Correct,
doesn't matter
correct.
whether the latency is bad or not, but if you can send a lot of things and then the chip computes it and it comes back, then you have a lot of hashes computed. But if you
So
lower the bandwidth, it's
correct.
fine.
So different than what NVIDIA have done. NVIDIA is a software implementation, which is cracked immediately. Uh, this the RX 6500 is a hardware implementation made sucky. So you only get like 4 GB, I believe, and on the smaller channel. So game would still work, and they are right. Game will still work reasonably well, reasonably well. And what they get is that they're going to push on the processors, the GPU cycles instead of
I would
memories.
say the right now is not just for cryptocurrency mining as much. The issue is more on the supply chain, right?
Correct, correct.
Mm.
So this one that so the reason for this is they'll try to control the supply chain and so that they don't really care as much, but in this case, if the gaming community do adopt it for whatever reason, that's a good view, lah. Know what I mean? That's a good view in in my end, lah, but not that much really. So yeah, and that's about it. So this week, what happened this week? So I discovered quite a few things. One of the things I discovered is called, oh crap, I forget the name. I actually used that just now. What's the security? Okay, let's start with this. OWASP. Okay, so first one is OWASP ZAP. It's called Z proxy, Z attack proxy. Uh, so recently I have to do testing on the application to verify that we've done our work properly. So it's not comprehensive, but mostly cover our back in the way that we should not make it easy for people to uh,
Of course, some of
well, we should
them
not.
will be some of the specific attack. We need like specific tools to test, like just like SQL injection. We
Correct,
need the
correct,
rules and stuff. I mean, the fuzzing rule set, but some of this, at least like using some of this off the shelf tool will just uh help us find out some of the silly mistake.
correct.
If it's
So
silly enough to be simple, I mean, it's let's fix it first,
correct.
and
Let's do that.
yeah, then
What?
try out other tools for other things.
Correct. This is not a replacement for pen testing, just so you know, because a pen tester know their stuff, and some of them that we know of are scary as hell. No offense, I know you guys. Know what I mean? I know you guys, but this is a tool that helps you to cover the basic. So unfortunately, I use that for my day job, so I cannot show you what we have until we fix it. I did not sign any disclosure agreement, and I'm not intend to because if somebody break into the system, I have to fix it. I don't want to fix it now. Okay, I don't want to fix it now. But Zap Attack Proxy, this is the first one I discovered. So how this work is, you will launch a browser. I let me find this. Let me find. Okay, here you are. So when you run a scan, so there's automated scan and all that, but you do not. By default, what you do is you use passive scan, which is you just load the page that you're targeting. Then when they run the browser, they also run a spider to crawl through your website. So that's a website where they try to do the basic things like part. They try to explore the part. They try to do script injection. They may try SQL injection if you do something silly. Uh, no, there is actually attack. For scanning, they just scan for things. But if you do run attack, they will do all. They will actually send in the payloads to your forms and whatnot. There is a few tools, but this is the one I use because I'm cheap. There's quite a number. There is actually things like Burp Suite, but Burp Suite are very professional and also very expensive.
You pay for their work.
Correct, but
Yeah.
they do their work and you get people, professionals use this for a
Yeah.
reason.
The engines are
So
often free in free and
correct,
open source most cases, but the work they put in, the definition are the one that
correct,
you are paying for.
correct. So I'm trying to see what. So often, I'm going to give you an example, right? Uh, so this is what article they do. The reason why I'm showing you this is because this shows that they do the work and this is one of the simpler work, but they do spend the time to actually try to run an attack. Okay, run an attack. In this case, definitely with permission, of course. They spend time to actually do the research, do the work, because that's what they do. They're focused on security. We as a software engineers, just your garden variety software engineers, do not necessarily have the same mindset. So if your organization can afford it, yes, but in my organization, not yet. It's not something that we can commit yet. Probably in the future, who knows? Not my call. But Burp Suite, Burp Suite actually will do. Uh, they will be a bit more comprehensive because they do a lot of the work. But if you're cheap, OWASP they cover the basic, and often
Yeah.
the basic is enough, right? Often the basic is enough because you will check for things like your JavaScript. So what they can already check is they can check your origin headers. So whether you allow origin from everything, which is silly if on hindsight, easy as a developer, silly on hindsight because do you really want your backend to only to accept from everywhere? Know what I mean? Uh,
Well, it
so
depends. If you're
it's
a
something that
public website, then maybe you want to. So it really depends on your use case, right?
yeah. So let's
And
say I give you an example. So for example, the public. Okay, so here's a cool one. Sina
like
project. This like
downloading.
a non-profit
Okay,
that I
yeah.
work with.
Mm-hmm.
We release public information in API form. We used to maybe not now. Now less of a focus, but we used to do that. Those information are meant to be consumed by public, and there is no write information in, right? So in that case, definitely allow all. That's fine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That is a public information. We want you to do something interesting. Another example is let's say you have a public API. In this case, let's say you are allowing your customer need customization, and they have a dev team. So you of course you expose the API. Okay, maybe at that time that is very reasonable, right? But let's say the API is only consumed by your own product, then probably it's a bad idea. So OWASP, the Z attack proxy would actually show you that you do not want that. Yes, there's condition, then you can actually exclude it if you want to. So one thing that Zep can already do for you is they already try to cover the OWASP top 10 that we covered last time and a bit more. So this is the example what they do. So they will launch a browser and the crawler will do the basic. Then they have plugin. The plugin is very interesting. So can I see the plugin? No. Uh, Docker image or the, so yeah. Oh, by the way, it's called attack proxy because it's really called an attack proxy. Bec- uh, because they will actually, if you do use attack mode, they will inject payloads. So you can use it to test. But apparently, for some reason, it's written. It takes time, but I need to find out why. I didn't find it. They also have things like the fastDB. So this will contain the a payload that attempt to fuzz in. Fuzzing means generating values lah. So for example, so this is for SQL injection. Where's my favorite one? Delete from. No lah, they don't have that here lah. This is for script injection. This is for attempt to shell, etc. So use ZAP proxy. I highly recommend it. Maybe I will do a
It's good
live
enough
demo
for all
sometime.
most.
Correct.
In fact,
If you need more and you're in a security sensitive organization, hire and you don't have the skill hire a pen tester. And sometime if you do work and often this is the requirement. You should that you work in this industry, then you must use a third party to actually audit your security. That's where pen testing comes in. So yeah, first one highly recommend. The second one, what's the one that you recommend again? The one that scan your Docker files
3V.
and all that.
3V is a dependency checklist.
Yeah, it's primarily a dependency checker, but recently I also discovered that they do things. They also check your cloud formation if you have it.
Yep.
Cloud formation template if you have it.
It checks your
it's very
Docker image as well.
correct. So
3V.
you can check your
Check it
Docker.
out.
Then you check.
I think you can share the link for.
Yep, I should add that to the notes. Which is
Oh no,
the
also
link.
here, like show it. It's a really good tool. It's just one tool that to do all
I
this.
open the wrong tab. Open the wrong tab. Give me a moment. 3V. BRB.
Yep.
BRB
This
because
tool
of
is a
Microsoft
Go binary, so it auto downloads the latest definition and scans Docker image. It scans your local file for the files that it can recognize, like your
Where's
Docker
the
file.
recognition database hosted? Because it does say this is a security issue, right? So is it hosted somewhere? Do you have to define it yourself? Is there a
it's
blacklist,
hosted somewhere.
whitelist?
So
By Aqua Security itself.
yep, correct. So again, it's my bad. I should run this before this. I run this at work. The report is I say a bit. They generate quite something, and more importantly, they link to Aqua Security. To about which CVE is it, which you can find out what's the vulnerability is about.
Yeah. But it
But
doesn't
that
submit
being
anything to the server.
correct. It does not
So it's
submit
just read,
everything, which is good.
read only.
Correct.
It's a read one.
Doesn't send anything
So
like what your
It's
your
a one
setup
tool
is.
for a lot of things. Yeah.
Well, they
Yep.
do log what is being checked, right? So I guess
Okay,
that's
see
how they
here?
know.
So this is the one, and occasionally they have a link. Some
Yeah.
you see,
If it, that's just mean that in our case just update the base image.
correct. So and often, sometimes we build our application, we realize that we use very old version. This would actually help convince the stakeholder that
Yeah. Down there it's gonna be
is-
like dependency checker, just like what Sneak is doing. So like it checks your Docker file, it checks your Kubernetes config. Also it checks your if
Correct.
you're using Node.js, it's gonna check your package JSON. You're gonna check your
Yep.
gem file and go mode, all those things.
Yes,
It's just
correct.
I like it is that it's so easy to use. It's just one tool for doing all this.
BR. So yeah, free. What's Give me a moment. I Yeah, Trivi. Highly recommended. We use it. It's pretty fast and
Yeah.
yes,
It
even
doesn't
though we
it
say
doesn't scan for stuff. It just scans for definition and
correct,
dependency.
correct, and that already cover quite a lot of stuff because
Yeah.
how often it uh again dependence as we updating our code is one of those old thing that we keep want to do that never do so. Yeah. So Trivi had another thing that I recommend. And finally, the last thing that I would recommend right now is actually Locus. Did I talk about Locus IO before?
I
I
don't.
remember talk
I
about that.
think I haven't heard from you before.
Okay, never mind. There is what is there WRK2?
Yeah, because it's not is I think it's not maintained anymore.
Oh, you mean this one is not maintained anymore?
It's the update is less frequent. If you
Oh,
notice.
okay.
Yeah.
Let me try
I don't know. I
what is
haven't catch up. And also like used to be installable from the package manager, like from the app via app gap, but these days you can't do that anymore.
okay, so let's start with
But you
Locus.
can always build your own.
Um Correct. So Locus is actually a load tester. Uh in the way it do the same thing
Oh,
as
it's a distributed load tester because I see they are
correct.
slave. We should be
One step at
redeemed
a
soon, I
time.
guess.
One step at a time. In short, yes, they can do distributed, but primarily you can run local, meaning you can run one instance, then you generate multiple worker to generate
Well,
reasonable load.
if you have a like if you have a config to do DOS mitigation, distributed makes sense.
Yep, correct. So in this case, if they use it for heavy load, more on that. So what does Locus does is Locus actually they are runner of a Python script, which you Python libraries, which is a Python script. Then what they do is they test only one domain. So if you have microservice, things get a bit weird. But load testing is often one
It's
domain, not one microservice, right? So
the the way they design it look very much similar to Scrappy.
yeah,
The
so and you can actually get result. You can actually get result. This one don't say it, but you can actually get result HTTP code to actually customize your test. So what I like about Locus scriptability because JMeter, what happened is you the way we tend to use it is you put a domain and you push it out. Sometimes that is what you want, but let's say you have a behavior that have multiple steps. In this case, your microservice is actually called your front end is calling multiple microservices. For example, then you would write multiple HTTP requests similar to this one, right? And then what happened then is Locus will generate a report first as god damn it. Let's see if I can see. Okay, let's go to the main page. There was also a report here, but you can export it to CSV. And you can actually distribute it if you want to. One machine is generally reasonable amount of load, but that being said, if you want to make it distributed, you can. And more importantly, that is Docker image for worker. That even though some place called slave, but now the documentation use the term worker and where is it? It's all here actually. The documentation is very good. So I just need to find a distributed load generation. So yeah, worker and master. So they don't use slave nowadays, but they still use master and worker. So and you can run the worker as a Docker image so that you can put it on your, for example, a good example is let's say you want to run it on your ECS images. ECS service, right? So you just get a Docker, set it as a worker, listen to the master, which you run somewhere, then you get distributed tasks, right? Distributed tasks. But it's still the Python code that you send over, right? So yeah. What I like again, scriptability, uh, is because it's easy to script. Then you can test crazy scenario lah, and you can even test like, what if we have error? How does it feel? Yeah, that's fine. You can do it if you want to. So yep. So the one that Chi Long recommend to me is actually, this is actually older than this one. What the hell? Let's start
No,
with
it's not
older.
recommended. It's just shared to swimming what I use.
Okay, so WRK is another one. This one is scriptable with Lua, right?
Yeah, I think some of the newer ones also has Lua scripting.
Yeah. So inside Python, this use Lua, but uh, this is not as updated anymore. But apparently, Qilong still use it. So yeah, if Qilong use it, I consider it as good. Ha ha ha. So so yeah, this is the load test I use. So, but before you test, before you test, always check with your provider before things go crazy and whatnot. So, for example, let's say you do a security test. Go back to OWASP that. You can do active test. You can do active. You can do active, uh, active scan, but AWS, for example, they actually do have all the proxies. They do check for securities and whatnot. So you should always ask first before you do it. So, and try to be reasonable. Do not spam your servers. Uh, so for
Well,
example, for
it's
load
your
test.
server, though. It's your
No,
server,
actually,
right?
it's
So
not. The network belong to AWS, for example.
okay. This is not a local test thing then.
Correct. In this case, I try to simulate something more realistic. That,
Mm.
and some there's a reason for that. More of that later. I try to simulate something of more of scenario. So which is why you need to ask for permission before you go on. Uh, so yeah, always ask for permission. But if you can do it locally, please do. Uh, Something to think about. So let's give an example. Let's say your service is behind an ECS instance. Then, and let's say you have something more than your laptop can handle, then probably you can't do it local, right? But for security, it's reasonable, it's feasible. It's feasible to do it local, but you need to make sure that your setting is 100% the same. 100% the same than on, let's say, again, AWS. But there is time where this is not feasible. So an example is, let's say you want to you build a microservice in Golang. Uh, in Go- so and you put it on a Lambda. For now, I do not know an easy way. Uh, I do not know how to run it as a local, run the Lambda in Go as a local web application. So whereas if you use things like serverless framework, serverless offline support Python, JavaScript. I do not know what's the other language, but it doesn't support Golang as a to simulate the API gateway. So this is why sometime testing it on live might be a good idea. And also, let's say you do test on, say, let's say it's a third party, right? Let's say it's a third party. You can't expect them to have the source code to do that, right? So you would, in fact, they would prefer like you host it somewhere and do the attack there. So something to think about lah. So yes, there is scenario where you want to test it live, and that's where you need to ask for permission, because even though you quote unquote rent the compute resources, but the network doesn't belong to you. you essentially, in fact, when you get a server, you're renting computing resource really. It's not yours actually. So always be nice. Don't go crazy over it. I got a feeling AWS might need to talk a few more, but I never asked them yet. I will ask them soon lah. So yeah, something I discovered. Testing. Will I do a fresh demo? Probably. I do not know what application that is not day job that I can test. Maybe I should test it against Sina Project website. Career will kill me. We might actually destroy
Try
his
it.
network.
No, just I think just notify him when you're gonna test.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. I think that's fine in a way, yeah. So either way, three tools are introduced. Trivi for your dependency security testing. They also check for your Docker and your configuration. Second thing I recommend is AWS Zap. AWS Zap, they do a bit more than dependency, but they cover the basic of the OWASP top 10 or top 20. So the top, they will do the basic. Just know that this is a basic check to cover your back. At least that will stop script kiddies from exploiting your application. If you have something more sensitive, I suggest a proper pen test. If you want to avoid problem, always goes back to OWASP top 10 to understand what's the current vulnerabilities and mitigation. They have extremely good resource. If you want load test, get something that's scriptable. I believe JMeter might be scriptable, but it's JVM based language, so it's your call. But to me, I use Locus. It's visibly updated and is using my favorite languages, Python. But even that, even though people are worried that how about your GIL, it doesn't really matter. Seriously, it doesn't really matter, because what happened is they actually do a OS process. So that's one thing, and you can distribute it with actual workers. So yeah. So yeah, three tools highly recommended. I hope to demo soon, next week maybe. I don't know. So any of your favorite tools that you want to cover that I
You know, I think I already shared them to you.
yeah, you share everything right. Tristan, any of the tools that do similar thing that you actually use?
No, I just use JMeter. I'm a
Yeah.
simple person.
But JMeter is reasonable. It's a common tool, so I understand why people do use it. And it's a lot of resource. So when you use JMeter, what you have is a lot of resource for you to do things. But just know that,
Well, whichever tool that you're familiar with, I would say.
correct. Just know that sometimes the tests are not trivial, because nowadays, if you're still building things on your PHP, your WordPress, your Rails, your Django, nice. It makes tests so much easy because you only care about few things: your cache, your servers, your your app, probably your web servers, and your database. Then maybe your queue, right? Yeah, which is awesome. But once you do things like lambdas and microservices, that's a whole other story altogether. Whole other stories. Because for once, lambdas are supposed to be scaled up. So when you push a lot of query, it only mean more expensive, in theory, more expensive bills, not crashes, right? So something to think about. Unless you had a database that bottleneck, then yeah, then it finally died. Congratulations. But think about it. Every time you call, you potentially spin up more requests that will be built to AWS. So you need to be extremely careful about it, because unlike your traditional method, it just means that either your web server died unlikely, or your application died more likely, or your database died definitely, right? In AWS, yes, your RDS may die. I hope so, But let's say you do use things like Aurora serverless. So what you get is a whole thing. You will get like another serverless instance to do query. You only get more bills. You only get more bills, which is good for
Nice.
resilience, not so good for costs, right? So when you have this kind of test, then you really need to think about. Then you are not testing to die. You are testing to make sure to know that what's the expected cost on the expected volume. So that's the thing you care about. But if you do in between, you do have things that you know to bottleneck. Then yes, it's a reasonable thing to test. But if you really go all out in serverless and all that, oops, right? So then you should test to get. Then in my opinion, I do not know what people's opinion is. You are testing to get expected costs. You're not testing. You're not testing to die like traditional load tests, or testing for expected load, because the thing are measured very differently. So yeah, you know what? I should ask my boss to see whether I can share an outline about testing this kind of environment. I think that's interesting. Maybe please don't DDoS me because I had to fix it, which is annoying. I don't hate it, but yeah, that's about it actually. So, what is happening next? Here's one. I'm going to show you something soon. La 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 la. O D light. Yes. Oh no, you see my pawn. Just kidding. You just see Oasis. That's my favorite band nowadays. Oh, D light. Remember the OpenCV camera that I like? So this is coming. This is coming. I get the static version, so there's no autofocus. Because I expect to hang it around or put it on a robot or put it in front of my dog, so the autofocus get confused lah with all the movement. So this is coming soon. According to delivery, it reached Malaysia. What the delivery company didn't say is whether the custom office is checking or whatnot. I do not know that. But yeah, I'm hoping to show you guys this next time.
What are you planning
Next
to do
week,
with it?
Project Gui.
Again. Okay.
Okay,
But does
so
it have to be like this kind of small camera?
no,
Like you
actually,
can just take
the
pictures,
reason
right?
to the reason why this camera is awesome because it's called a stereoscopic camera, meaning you can see the front thing, right? Meaning, let's say you had something in front of you, the thing the closest to you tend to be the thing that you're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, okay, forget about grade. Let's say you're looking at a laptop, right? You're buying a laptop. The first thing that in front of you is the laptop. You don't actually care about the mouse that's a bit further. You don't actually care about the price tag, which is a bit further, a bit smaller. Maybe you do care about price tag, but you will you will you will have your own rules to decide the size and thing that you care about. So another example is animal detection. So for example, you have a bird. So recently there's a bird making nest on top of my house. So uh, so if you use a strategic camera, you will see a 2D image and you change the pixel, which is more complicated. With stereo camera, even though you're going to use a very silly algorithm, you can find a diff more effectively because the bird move in front of you versus the thing on the background that is a bit more static. because you have a depth, you have a sense of depth. So that's interesting. I do not know what I want to do when I find the bird, to be honest. But this is stereoscopic camera is very interesting for. It's also very interesting for. I hate this word. The metaverse, AR,
Why not?
and for
There's
very
nothing-
good, for a very good reason, because as I say, the things that closest to you tend to be the thing that we care about. Even you don't really care about it, but that's the first thing you want to avoid, first thing you want to render and whatnot, right? So this is you need this kind of camera that make life easy for you to do that. So for example, one thing I do want to do is, okay, there's this grand artwork I want to do, art project I want to do. I want to put sensors on trees that will recognize birds and recognize it.
Oh, I thought
Then
you were
I
doing
have-
a 1984 George Orwell. You're putting sensors
So-
on
so-
trees and make sure that
Yeah.
that you don't swear.
So what happened
Yeah.
then is the tree, there will be a small computer that collect all this information and it will generate a story. So you have these old trees that tell you stories. That so today I saw birds at this part of my trees. Then with some cameras around we can see fruits.
But
See fruits
those
are
are-
growing on this.
Those cameras are static, right? And so you
Yeah,
need
yeah,
a lot
yeah,
of them.
yeah. So that one I might not use that. No, that is my grand project. I do not know how to fit the stereo camera to this kind of project.
Ah, okay, okay.
That one, it's more likely I use something like the ESP2 cam, which is reasonably cheap.
Yeah.
So for this kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But maybe we can use that and detect a tree and decided that what story does this tree tell? That one is a big project. I might not commit to it. I just find it interesting to do so that people don't take down the tree because each tree had their own stories, right? So I find it interesting. But that's just me. So, that being said, thanks for listening. Only whoever the one person that listened to us throughout the time. Is it us? Is it any of us?
No,
I
it's
don't
not.
know.
It's not me.
Not me.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's gonna
Thanks for
be. It's gonna be
listening.
a slow month again, like because
yeah.
it's still holiday season, technically.
So actually, here's the worst part. Next week, I'm going to get my jab. No guarantee we have a show unless Tristan and Chilean want to come in. The week
I'm getting a
after
jab
is
as
actually
well
the
next
week. The
Yeah.
week up. The
Just
week
make it like
after
his
is the
jab.
week before CNY. So
I think
do
I
not know
can
who's
make it
around.
to CMY because the main days are Tuesday and Wednesday.
Yeah, so in my case, I may not want to do CNY simply because I'm a Chinese. As a Chinese, we deserve holiday as well. Just kidding, we Chinese don't do holiday. So that being said, let's see how we do. Let's see. So,
Okay.
so thanks
See
for
you guys.
listening. So
Yeah.
see ya. I'm going to end broadcast.